Hello and welcome everyone to this latest session of WasteBuild 365. This is all about what does circularity mean to you? And we've got an inspirational session of cross-industry experts who are going to talk us through what happens in their in their world. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Pinar. Pinar, over to you.
Thank you, Fraser. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here with these two lovely ladies that I admire a lot. So to briefly introduce myself, I'm Pinar Gunvenc. I'm partner at Sour, which is an international studio with the mission of addressing social and urban problems through architecture and design. And what I want to do, so I'll be moderating the conversation today. And what I want to really do is to do what we always do at our studio during our research process, is to have a discussion with progress makers in various other fields and with diverse backgrounds to really understand what does the matter mean to them in their own field and how they're approaching it. We do believe that we have sufficient amount of problems in the world and we cannot address them without diverse and strategic collaborations. And we really need to listen to each other and educate ourselves to understand how are people addressing the same problem in their own industry and what might be common practice to them, but an innovation to us. So with that, welcome Tiffany and Carolina, and I will have you introduce yourselves and your amazing firms. And Tiffany, go first.
Sure, great. Thank you so much, and it's great to be here. So I'm Tiffany. I'm the Global Vice President of Design and Engineering at a company named TerraCycle. And if you guys aren't familiar with TerraCycle, let me just share just like a quick overview of what we do. So TerraCycle is a company that figures out, like, our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. And we do that through a couple of different ways. Like our initial initiative is to make everything recyclable. Once we've made everything recyclable, to make everything from recycled materials. To further that, and to, you know, with this mission of supporting a circular economy, making it reusable, and to innovate with waste. So just to kind of explain TerraCycle and then our newest initiative, Loop. I mean, as you all know, like, the value of waste is increased by whatever material it is we're looking at. So things that are landfilled, like dirty diapers, are kind of at the bottom of the pile. And as materials have more value, they're typically recycled more. Like, you wouldn't think twice about throwing like a gold necklace away, but you might think twice about throwing like a dirty takeout container away. So that's really what materials, you know, why they're not recyclable is because there's not a lot of value. Like, a lot of municipal recycling systems, I'm in the United States, but I know globally, like, a lot of communities stop recycling because materials just don't have a value to the community and they have to put a lot of resources into it. So enter TerraCycle. So we are a solution for big companies to recycle their waste when they don't have other solutions. We run free recycling programs in partnership with big companies who sponsor these programs to collect waste. And the way we typically do it is through schools and other organizations. They can sign up for one of our free collection programs online, and we're active in over 20 countries, and a lot of them in Europe. You sign up for these free collection programs, you collect your waste, you put it in any box you have at home, and you send it into us, and we'll make it into new and reusable products. So like I mentioned, we partner with a number of big brand partners to do this. And you know, as I mentioned too, like, the value of waste decreases as the material decreases. So we recycle everything from potato chip bags to cigarette butts to chewing gum, which is actually often a plastic. Most of what we work with is consumer packaging. You know, packaging is a big part of what ends up in landfills, and then we figure out solutions from there. So once we have all this material, we have to figure out what to do with it. So we have a team of designers, which is the team that I lead, and scientists on staff to look at this material, look at the physical composition and breakdown, and figure out what we can make out of it. So these are some examples of all of the things that we've made. So we have upcycling, which is a very niche market, but a very visual example of what you can do with materials. So like Doritos is one of our partners. We partnered with them and made a jacket for Stephen Colbert, which he wore on the Colbert Report, out of Doritos packaging. So it's very visual. Like you have your Doritos package and it's made into this jacket. Other, more significant examples of moving lots of material is working with Sharpie Expo and taking collected markers and turning it back into like markers or like the marker ledge. So this is a closed loop example. We've also collected a number of drink pouches. We turn that back into Adirondack chairs, picnic tables, things of that nature. And then we do community builds. So like we make playgrounds and raised garden beds out of plastic. So like we partner with Colgate and several other partners to do that. So it's like taking oral care waste and making it back into a plastic that can be turned into something that the community, it's like a give back to the community. Another thing that really sets us apart is our office, which many of us are working from home right now. We do have access to the office and I do go in about once a week, but I'm working from home right now. But our office is very unique. Everything's made from garbage. Like you walk into the office, it's carpeted with AstroTurf from a nearby soccer field. Soda bottles separate the offices. So it's also like a visual exploration and shows our commitment to sustainability. And it's a really fun place to work. So that's what we do with these materials that we collect that already exist. But furthering that, so TerraCycle has been around for over 15 years. So, we have the system down of collecting waste and turning it into new products. That material already exists. But to further that, 2 years ago, we launched Loop, which is a platform to reduce packaging and make it reusable before it even becomes waste. So it's actually recycling the concept of the milkman, if you will. So like taking reusable containers and putting consumer goods in them and then, sending them to people's homes. They use them. Actually, I use it in my own home. This is like my laundry detergent from Love Beauty Planet and, my granola that I eat every morning. This is from my Loop box. And basically you use the containers. Once they're empty, put them back into the box and ship it back to us. And we're going to be in a number of retail stores soon, for in France and Tesco in the UK. So basically, we're open in the US, France, and the UK right now. We're expanding to Canada and Japan next year, and hopefully even more globally after that. So these are some examples of different partners we work with to put, the reusable content. I mean, the content inside. A lot of times it's food, but we do everything from like pens and pencils to skincare products. And it basically just shifts the ownership. Like when you buy a product at retail, like you own that package now. You don't really want to own the package. You want the contents inside. So this really shifts the thinking to what if you're just borrowing the package, you use the contents and then give it back to us to clean and refill. And it also is a really cool exploration of packaging. And myself and my team have had a lot of fun with this because you can build, you can actually spend so much more on the package and add a lot of value and new features that you couldn't spend on it before because this is going to be around for 100 times or more. Here are some examples of some of our favorite products. Ice cream, Haagen-Dazs. This is one of my favorite containers because they made it, it has a double wall, so it actually keeps the ice cream cooler longer. So it's an example of building one of those features into the package. This is Tropicana orange juice, very much like the Milkman system where you have your reusable container. And this is what it's going to look like in store and some of our in-store partners that we're launching. Cool. So that's
super exciting.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. That very exciting to hear about all of these. So from one, I guess, enabling company that helps all of us to be participant in circular economy to a brand that is living, breathing it in the fashion industry. So Carolina, feel free to kick it off.
Thank you, Pinar and Fraser, for inviting ECOALF, and congratulations, Tiffany, for the Loop project, because it's what we need. It's what the world needs. Okay, so I'm Carolina Alvarez Ossorio. I'm the head of marketing and communications at ECOALF, and to talk about ECOALF, ECOALF is a Spanish fashion brand that was born in 2009 with our president and founder, Javier Goyeneche. And basically, we wanted to create a truly sustainable fashion brand. The most sustainable was to stop using natural resources in a careless way. So we wanted to use recycling materials if we were able to create a new generation of recycled products with the same quality and design as the best non-recycled. So this was back in 2009 in Spain. So you can imagine it took us 3 years to launch the brand. And we had the big challenge of the quality, the quality and the amount of the low recycled material that you could find. It was only around 3 to 5%, and the quality was very poor. So for us, what was very important is to make a product that would look cool and fit well, and then you would find out that it's made of recycled materials. So in those 3 years when we launched the brand, we spent a lot of time investigating and exploring and learning and creating alliances and joint ventures with different partners that would have the technology or would invest in the technology of giving waste another life and make it a high quality yarn to create a new jacket or a new sneaker or a new t-shirt. So today we have we have transformed over 400 fabrics from recycled plastic bottles, recycled nylon, recycled cotton and wool and tires and coffee. So we work with all these recycling materials that are looked as waste, giving them another chance. We also work with low impact materials, and we have recycled over 200 million plastic bottles and helped to recover over 80 or 100 tons of fishing nets that we then transform into this high quality yarn and product. But I think the most revolutionary project took place in 2015, which was upcycling the oceans. This is a project that started in the Mediterranean coast of Spain, in Levante. And basically a fisherman approached us and said, was asking us, why are you working with the waste in the land when there is so much waste in the ocean? You should come out fish with me. And of course, Javier went out fishing on a fishing boat, and he saw that every time they pull up the net, there's this huge amount of waste, not just plastic, because now the topic is plastic, but it's a lot of different things that you wouldn't even imagine that are coming out of the fishing nets of these fishermen daily, and it's being thrown back into the ocean. So we started exploring and studying, and basically we found out that around 80% of marine debris is at the bottom of the ocean. So what we see is just the tip of the iceberg. And the problem is that when anything is floating and it dissolves and it goes all the way to the bottom of the ocean, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years to decompose, And in the case of plastic, it turns into microplastics. So we decided to start this project, Upcycling the Oceans, with the collaboration of fishermen. And we put containers on their boats. Every time they fish, they throw the waste, instead of back into the water, into this container. Then when they get to port every day after their 12 hours, they throw it into the bigger containers that we put on the ports. And then we collect it weekly to then classify the types of waste. ECOALF will keep the plastic bottles. The rest of the waste will go to the different facilities to be recycled. And for us, with this plastic bottle, we turn it into pellets, flakes, yarn, fabric, jackets, basically. This was back in 2015, 3 fishermen in Levante. Today, we have the collaboration of over 3,000 fishermen taking out over 500 tons of waste from the bottom of the ocean. We've expanded to Thailand, working in 5 islands, also with the support of the scuba divers and beach volunteers. And now we're expanding into the rest of the Mediterranean Sea, because we plan to work with over 10,000 fishermen by 2025 to clean up the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. We started in Greece, we're going into France, Italy, and this is our main mission. But of course, this waste doesn't get to the ocean by the coast, it gets to the ocean by the cities, no? And by the rivers. So for us, what's very important also is education. And this is something that we spend a lot of time giving talks around the world, in universities, in schools as well, to try to show, no, that there is a way to do things differently, that we are in the fashion industry, is the second most polluting industry in the world, and we have a mission that goes well beyond business. We need to take responsibility, and we need to act, because there isn't another way out, no? There's only one planet, and we need to find a balance between our needs and our future needs and the planet's health, and especially now after what we've seen. So I think at the end, and it's a little bit of what Tiffany was saying, waste, we need to change the mindset, no? Waste is only waste if we waste it. So we need to find alternatives and find different ways of transforming that waste with innovation and with technology.
This is so fascinating. And if anyone in the audience have ever questioned how by just wearing a shirt they would like contribute or would not contribute to environmental activism, this is a great example. You can be environmentally proactive by simply just wearing things. And it really, like, our decision on clothing actually very, very matters. So I think, like, I want to talk about, because when we're listening to these things, I would say 90% of the people should be like, okay, this sounds obviously really, valid. We should participate in this, or we want to support it because it just feels like common sense and good business, right? Like, someone else's waste being your own ingredient is just a good economic model as well. But first of all, why do you think there is still some resistance? Like, you touched upon education a little bit, Carolina. So is it more around awareness or education, or do you see other things as well in terms of resistance? And when you are trying to practice these on a day-to-day, what are some of the issues that you're trying to tackle as a business in order to achieve what you're doing today?
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go first can go first.
I mean, in the case of ECOALF, I think for sure education, and this is why it's part of our brand pillars, because it's a lot of the times we are worried about the planet we're going to leave to the kids, and we should be worrying about the kids we're going to leave to the planet, no? And I think especially in Spain, no, we're not so aware. I think it really varies where you come from and where you live, but for me, it's making a huge effort in education. And starting from the youngest generations, and to try to have the way of thinking, the circular economy way of thinking, staged from the beginning. So they embrace it and they think like that since the beginning. No? So no matter if you're going to go into building, construction, fashion, or medicine, to think circular, because I think for the last generations, we've always been thinking about linear models, profit. And I think that's the other one, no? Probably the profit, which sometimes a lot of the decisions we have to take seem right for the planet, but don't seem right for the business. Profitable. So I think that's. But
I guess short-term profit, right? Because what we're doing is not even long-term profitable.
Exactly. When you put the planet as a priority, the long-term profit will show. But as you were saying, the short term is what some people might not see and might not work short term, no? So, but that also goes hand in hand with education as well, no? You have to be able to look at the big, the long scope and understand, no? What is this going to do to my business, and what is this? What's going to be the impact in the people, as well as in the industry.
Yeah, and I think to build off of the education part of it, on TerraCycle's side, I think convenience is our biggest challenge. Like, to get people to, or not just people, but like companies to convert into loop packaging. Like these big brand partners like Procter and Gamble, like they know how to package in single-use containers, but to get them to like, reconsider their supply chain and to just launch with a product in, a bottle like this is Unilever, is no small feat. And then to like work with them to like TerraCycle, Loop, sanitizes, like we industrially sanitize all the containers and send it back to them and they refill the containers. But that whole circularity of it is, it's just refiguring out like how they've been doing it. But everybody, you have your system and how you work and you have, your patterns. So it's like getting that restructured is our biggest hurdle right now. And then on the consumer side, like it's convenient to use a product and to discard it. Or like on the recycling side, like, I mean, everybody, does their part to rinse out their spaghetti jar or, things like that. And we're really good at recycling things, but recycling is just one part of it. Like we really need to get to this system of reuse.
Right. I mean, I guess like when we talk about circularity, there's so many angles to approach it, right? Like, first of all, we can all consume less. Just buy good quality stuff instead of like buying, 10 t-shirts a month, just buy one maybe and from ECOALF. Or, you can easily educate others to or call out on others' actions. I think silence on things also does not help, and it's not an easy feat because we're following an era in 60s where like the throwaway life was promoted in big banner ads with good, nice design banner ads that, we should like throw away everything. So there are generations that were raised like that. And then now we actually, we were interviewing Duncan Baker-Brown yesterday, who's an architect and educator who has been practicing circularity and teaching it for like the past 25 years. And what he was saying, actually, this is the first year ever in freshmen that we're going to have climate strikers, which is actually very interesting. So I'm assuming this new generation, I actually have hope in Gen Z in really understanding what's going on. And also being probably more educated than many of us too, going into school and really carrying this passion into what they do, whichever profession that is, similar to you both, and sort of practice that. But I do really want to echo the, I guess, education part of it and the awareness part of it. I think there is a responsibility that falls upon all of us when it comes to that. I think, we, as an architecture studio, it is not very conventional to have conversations about such things in public. But we also were like, there's no solution to any problem without educating end user. So our internal resource should be public as well. And we started public panel and discussions and podcast series called What's Wrong With, in order to share the research that we're doing and have the younger generation listen as well. So no matter what profession we're in, technically, we can contribute to the education and awareness piece. I know ECOALF does workshops in their stores. I think all of us have to change our mindset as well in terms of what our responsibility is in whatever practice that we're doing, and just be more proactive, right? I think that's what it really, really calls for. I'm curious to hear, because, this isn't the overall day event is more around the construction industry, and you as like outsiders to the industry, I think is very interesting to listen to see what's going on in your industry. But in addition to, I guess, your own like supply chain and sourcing the waste, what other diverse collaborations that you had to practice in order to execute what you're doing today? Like because these are like big terms, right? Like circular economy, climate change. What does it take? Like what professions, what people does it take to sort of like come together in order to execute something? Like because you're in product, technically product design, I would say maybe industrial design even, and you're in fashion, but it's not a fashion designer's job nor an industrial designer's job only. So what does that team look like for both of you, or what it should look like?
Right. So if I understand the question, like who's leading the change essentially, or who
is or who should be, like who should we see more in teams, I guess, in like practicing this? Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, at TerraCycle and at Loop, there are so many stakeholders involved. Like we have our we have our business development team, then our account management team, packaging development, R&D, to like help, like on the Loop side to help with like the cleaning, on the TerraCycle side to help figure out like what the material composition is. I mean, it's kind of everyone, but I mean, we need to, it's the partnerships with other companies for us that really needs to lead this, because we wouldn't be a business if we didn't have these other strategic partnerships. And then there needs to be, a demand for it, and like a sign-in from consumers too. So like on TerraCycle, we need people to actually collect the waste, or these partners aren't going to partner with us. And on Loop, we need to have people actually purchasing the products to make the system circular and work, and make it into a cycle. So, I think it starts with TerraCycle and Loop presenting these innovations in recycling and reuse, and then having the sign-in from other big brands to help drive it forward.
Which could be in any industry, right? Like we're again talking about this recently. The 60% of the waste in UK is generated by the construction industry. 60%. That would be a huge amount of supply for you guys, I can imagine. So, there is a need for more collaboration with the real estate industry also, clearly.
Yeah.
So all these industries that they may not know how to start off, but they have to also realize like there are good companies, really good companies that actually can help them execute as well. So yeah, one industry that I was thinking that should be part of the collaboration clearly was the construction industry. But if you want to also do a shout out or a call out to any other industry who should be more actively involved, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think on our side, like we partner with so many consumer goods, like single consumer goods. And I know we have a local, there's a company locally called Revolution Recovery that does work with the architecture and build industry, and they kind of do on an architectural scale what TerraCycle does on a packaging scale. So they collect the materials and they sort drywall from wood, and they recycle all of the parts. Yeah, so that's kind of where things are going there.
How about you, Carolina? Who would you also want to see? You're collaborating with fishermen, which is amazing. Who else do you want to collaborate with?
I think it's very similar to what Tiffany was saying. I think at the end, it's the people, no? Starting with the people inside the corporation. So I think in our case, everybody's mindset, they're all aware that there is that planet Earth is shaking, basically, and that we need to change the way we do things. No, we always say like, there is so many fashion brands, no? And there's so many t-shirts out there, but it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. And it's about, and making one decision for one product doesn't mean it's the same decision for the next product. So it's about, first of all, within the corporation, that everybody's way of thinking is aligned, and that consistency, because then that's going to help us when we start collaborating with third parties or with other partners like a supplier, or all these alliances we made throughout these several years to transform this waste into high quality products. No, we spent a lot of time trying to convince them and to show them that the only way forward was thinking circular, and that if they would invest now in this innovation, this is back in 10 years ago, today they would have a competitive advantage, and they do. Now they see it. Now the time has come. So I think that a persistency within the corporation is then fed, like nurtured with the third parties and the partners. And then I think people, customers, of course. That's the other very, very important part, which is also what Tiffany mentioned, no? And I think for customers, we have some, especially the younger generations that are more aware of what's going on. They're demanding it, no? They're asking for this transparency and this traceability. And what does it mean? Recycled cotton or organic cotton? So in our case, we want to stop working with organic cotton because for me, the water footprint of an organic cotton t-shirt is exactly the same as a cotton. It's 4,000 liters of water, which is insane. So I want to work with recycled cotton. But of course, we can't have everything in recycled cotton. So we try to find a balance and maybe stop doing recycled organic cotton until we are ready, no? So at the end, I think it's very much, it comes down to people and to being like super aligned and having that passion and that wanting to do things differently.
Yeah, I think what you said in terms of transparency, I want to touch upon that later. But to your point, I think we talked about education, and that also comes with, I guess, access to information, right? Like it's crucial, not only like providing the information, but in an accessible way, in an accessible language. Like I think when we do analogies, like comparing like the food industry, let's say people have a better understanding, like you won't put everything into your salad, right? Clearly, you can identify a good ingredient from another. Now we have more of an understanding of fair trade food, organic food, or like natural food. And that education has to sort of like replicate into other industries as well. If we start to question what's going into our shirt or the box that we hold at our home, or even the house that we live in, then that questioning of materiality and the ingredients will actually create also demand for businesses to work the way that they should work. And I guess that also ties into what you said in terms of transparency. I think, I mean, there may be many evils of social media, but we've also saw a great side of it, especially in climate change movements, I would say, where it allows for some things to be shared that normally maybe mainstream media would never share. And it also helps in educating yourself. Like even if your household does not talk about a subject or like what's going on in our oceans or the packaging that we're using, you may see it on social media. And that transparency, like the fluidity of the information really helps in self-education. But in terms of other, like we talk about all these like efforts that are much more so bottom up push, like you as like two companies that are trying to innovate in this space are like pushing sort of like everyone to change. And there could be some top down approaches as well that could enable this further. Like similar to how in the United States, FDA may need to approve something, or you might get like an organic stamp on your food. How does that, what is your thoughts on in terms of like, what could be maybe the top-down policies that could really enable further transparency in everything that we use, that would sort of make your jobs easier, but also would enforce people to have a more circular approach?
Well, from TerraCycle side, like we work in, in over 20 countries, seeing some of the policies in place over in Europe, like they do they're much more accustomed to collection and recycling than say the United States, for example. Like there are many governments over there, like Germany's kind of at the forefront of that, where companies need to take ownership of the package that they put their products in, not just the product themselves. So, I mean, I don't know if it's, it's a lot of work to like tax companies for the packaging that they make, but doing some kind of regulation around and making companies take ownership to make sure that their packaging is recyclable. And we on the Loop side, we just announced like a really exciting partnership with McDonald's, where we are where Loop is going to be the supplier of reusable hot beverage cups over in the UK, and we're launching that next year. In part because there are regulations that are going to be taking place in Europe in the next couple of years, where single-use packaging at fast food locations need to be something that those companies think about and are a way of the past. So the fact that we have the system in place made it like an easy partnership to help them transition to.
Great. What do you think, Carolina?
I think
what if we have full transparency in our etiquettes, and like showing what we're wearing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for us, this was something that we were, it was part of our strategy because we're a very small team, and transparency was something that was really missing in the, like, if you would go to the website of ECOALF, you were not able to really see, like, how do you get this plastic, no? And so when we go to talks, it's fine because you spend 30, 40 minutes explaining the whole process and everything, but then we really wanted to take a step forward and show all this work behind the production. And finally, we were able to introduce this Beacon tool, which actually tells you the impact. It's divided into people, planet, and transparency, and it's giving a score. So it's basically scoring us, scoring ECOALF on our sustainable practices, both social and environmental and ethical, across each garment for the collections. And then the customer can see this straight away. And they will see also the impact. What does this mean? No? How many liters of water or how much CO2 emissions behind this recycled product versus a virgin product. So I think that was a huge step for us that we're now activated and something that we needed. And also, it's helping us to improve the things we need to get better at. But from what you're saying, Pinar, from a bottom down, I think unfortunately, because we are where we are, there should definitely be the government and the private sector be working together, and trying to find benefits for sustainability or for green initiatives, real green initiatives, no, for the people that are doing things right, basically. And unfortunately, that's not the case. We have absolutely no support from any
government side. Yeah.
And it doesn't look, I mean, I think at some point this is going to have to change.
Yeah, and it will, but policy always lags, right? Like what you're doing, the push is also showing people that it's still possible. Like you create your own scorecard. How amazing is that? Do not wait for anyone else.
You also mentioned certifications. To me, that's another world that you also need to really look into it, like read absolutely everything of what that certification means. But I think there is the B Corp certification, which to me is the one that I think it's a different one across all the certifications, which is actually evaluating the business 360, starting with people. And I think these are the types of certifications that make you become part of a community and to use your business as a force for good, and not trying to be the best company in the world, but to be the best company for the world, no? So I think this is also another type of a good business movement that is also helping.
So well said. I think anyone in the construction industry would also appreciate that comment. It really does apply to everyone. But I think, it's also important to talk about these and the efforts, because sometimes it does become an excuse. Like if there's no regulation, nothing is done. And to Tiffany's point, it's about convenience. It's not required at the moment. It's not mandated. So why should we do it? There's no demand anyway. So all of these things. But demand is there and demand is coming. And through such transparency and continuous education, the demand is only going to increase. So if, the stats on environmental status is not really affecting anyone, they should worry about their long-term profits as a business, I would say. But really, I think also we have to sort of follow the countries and governments that are doing really progressive work. I mean, if fashion industry or product industry lags, I think construction industry even lags further in, innovation, especially in the field. I don't know why. If the real estate, there's a saying. I'm trying to remember. If the car industry was like the real estate industry, we would still be riding horse carriages. I think that was a saying. So that mindset clearly needs to change. But there are also many great companies who are participants also today, and governments that are trying to push things forward. Like last year in Netherlands, I've heard the conversation of, building passports for materiality, to declare materiality of the buildings. Like, how amazing would that be if we go into, when we're deciding to rent an apartment or buy a house, we're not just looking at if it has a balcony or a backyard or get sunlight. We will question the materiality of the building itself and maybe the construction process. And why shouldn't we do that with our clothing as well? Like, question what was a fair trade, what materials go into it, how much water did it use, what's the carbon footprint in general. Like, when these things will become common language, it's just a matter of education and awareness, as we said, and really just pushing bottom up and not wait for the policy, as we discussed. So I think it's before I want to sort of like skim through the questions that are coming through, I want to ask you guys, what would be your advice to anyone who is trying to push boundaries in their own industry and trying to make progress? Because it's, not an easy job. Tiffany, you're thinking of an advice?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I mean, with how TerraCycle and Loop have approached it, it's also, I mean, for us, it's kind of about timing. Like, we were talking about it, like Loop is really like kind of the next iteration of TerraCycle in a way. But like, we couldn't have started with Loop, 15, 20 years ago when we started as a company. Like, people are now accustomed to recycling, and now, like, with the conversations going and furthering the conversations, getting people to, come on board to this is like, it was the right time for Loop, really, like when we started, planning for it, because, policies were starting to change. Like, lots of communities and governments have made commitments to be, carbon neutral by 2050, or, reducing plastic waste by, 2030, things like that. So I guess, like, reading your audience in a way, like understanding, like, the supply and demand, and doing it at the right moment to gain the momentum and the traction that you need to make it a success.
Great. Carolina?
Mm-hmm. I think, because for us, we didn't start at the right time. I think, no, it wasn't that we didn't start at the right time. Javier was a visionary, Now yeah. We start talking about this, and everybody kind of has a sense. And everybody understands. But 10 years ago, in Spain specifically, it was quite tough, And I think it's something that I mentioned before. I think the advice I would give is that it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. So really, to make sure that you study, that you explore, that you insist, because if you're thinking if you're doubting, it's because there is another way. And you need to be fighting and being pushing people as well to really find this way and to get the best out of them. But we need to find the balance, regardless of the industry. We all need to find the balance, and of course, to collaboration, to work with others, to work with the best in every field, and to share.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I could definitely see how that difficult, that was, I'm so glad you guys started out, even though it was an early time. I guess I would also like to add to both what you said, just start somewhere. I think, obviously, especially if you're a young firm or you're just getting started, it's hard to do everything right. Like, you also need to acknowledge that, but it's okay, because as long as your mindset is there, you will be aiming to get to the point. Any company now, any corporation still has, you know, a lot to innovate on their own processes or be somewhere, but we have to start somewhere. And I think the best analogy I can think of is like, you know, you may be following a healthy diet, but you can stray away every now and then and have a chocolate cake. It's fine as long as your overall agenda is to, you know, be healthy for yourself. So, and if we follow the same mentality about our planet, that we should have a healthy planet, and, you know, I think we will all be at a much better place. So thank you so much, ladies. I want to see if we have any questions. I have one from Russell that I want to read quickly. It's for both of you. Is it consumer demand that is driving the change, or is it mainly industry leaders like you guys trying to drive the change? We touched upon it a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, I think for us, like I think often like consumers don't know what they want because it hasn't been presented to them yet. So we definitely need innovation to you know, present these new ideas and initiatives and ways that consumers can make change. And you know, consumers are used to, like, everybody's so busy now, you know, and giving them ways that they can just incorporate change into their lives is really the way to push things forward. Like, you know, people don't want to take a long time to, I don't know, to, like, everybody could hang their laundry outside. Like, people like the convenience of being able to throw it in the dryer. I think that, you know, making ways, I mean, I am one of those people that has like an outdoor, but like, you know, innovating things. So like when you do need to use like a dryer, like making those more energy efficient, like, but having businesses on the forefront of figuring out what that means for their industry, like what is the innovation to guide consumers along in their purchasing choices.
Right. Carolina? I mean, clearly when you launched, maybe there was zero demand. Right?
No, I think it's a combination. It's a mix of both. It's a mix of both, and we're starting to see now, maybe before the mindset, people were more open in the past 2 years, there's been an increase, but you wouldn't see the purchasing behavior following that mindset, no? I think that's switching now and it's being accelerated, unfortunately, because of what we're living. But it's a mix of both.
Yeah,
and the industry standard for sure.
Yeah, and I guess I would also say, like, it really depends on the industry, right? Like, I feel like if, you know, your customer audience is Gen Z versus, you know, I guess Xennials or, you know, Gen X and what comes prior, I forgot, but like there's really different behaviors. And as you said, the mindset doesn't necessarily reflect on behaviors always. So I guess it really also depends on the industry. I think in architecture, I mean, there are regulations now and like more incentives from governments to build more sustainably. But still, in terms of, you know, a conversation on circular economy, there's still a lot, you know, a long way to go. And that, I think the customer end demand I mean, maybe it's starting, but it's very low. So it like companies have to lead by example, and the more examples there are, the more people will demand that. And like we discussed earlier, I think that's the only way possible for a business to be relevant in the future and have long-term profit, really. Do we have any other questions? I guess maybe also Fraser might want to add a few things before we wrap up. But other than that, any final comments that you ladies want to add? Any shout outs you want to give, or any news about the business that we should be following?
From the Loop side, like, keep an eye on us. Like I mentioned, we just announced our partnership with McDonald's. We're going to be launching with Ulta next year to do beauty. Like, the beauty industry is another one that could use like a little push along the way. Yeah. But, you know, just kind of incorporating like the circularity into your lives. Like just think about easy changes you can make and you know, just furthering your commitment to sustainability. It's a visual that people see like in your work life. And you know, like I have my notebook is made out of like an old record album cover, and when I would go to meetings, it would be like a talking point, like people would like ask about that. So, you know, it definitely like shines through, and, you know, like lead by example in a sense.
Carolina, any news on your side we should be following?
We have a couple of things. We just launched the Peretti technology. I don't know if you've heard of it. They worked with NASA in the past, and basically it's an invisible coating that we're putting on our products that kills bacteria and eradicates air pollution. So this is something we started this fall winter season, and we've actually started a collaboration with a furniture company called Vicarve, where we're making a beautiful circular economy model. So once you don't want that piece anymore, it can be 100% recycled again and recreate another piece for your house. So we're entering other categories to continue to further extend our sustainable lifestyle experience. So follow us on social media, and you will know, and you will stay up to date of all the technologies we're launching.
Yes,
yeah,
please
it's
follow
really
on social media.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's so cool to hear about what you do, because TerraCycle, like, we focus more on packaging, and we do a little bit in the textile industry, but not much. But I mean, it's like, I know I've read about you guys before, but it's cool to hear like the bigger picture.
Collaborate. Thank you so much, ladies. I think this is not only inspirational, but educational, and seeing real examples also does help, I think, for us to relate to it more if we are not in it already. So, you know, you both do amazing work, and I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation today. Thanks to Fraser. And with that, we'll leave it to you.
Well, thanks very much, Pinar, and thanks to Tiffany and Carolina for joining as well. Yeah, it really was inspirational, and it is what comes across loud and clear is this notion of collaboration, not just within our sector, the built environment, but actually it's an ecosystem, right, of all sectors and all waste streams or material flows. Yeah, to the point, to echo the point you were just making, I think people are looking for solutions in their daily lives, in the built environment. We're looking for how we can make our next project more circular. But equally, as we said, we're looking for how I can not just borrow this packaging, or how I can just borrow the packaging and return it, right? Rather than owning a packet and then have to dispose of it. And loved your comment, Carolina. Waste is only waste if we waste it. I mean, I'm gonna get that, I don't know, written somewhere around my office.
Yeah.
But yeah, really appreciate everyone's time and effort and energy in the session. Thanks for everyone for joining us as well. This is obviously one part of the event. We've got the main stage here, which we're presenting on. There's another couple of rooms that are ongoing. There's the networking features. There's the expo area, and I'll encourage everyone to visit pop into those rooms and see what's going on. Reach out to people using there's a people section at the top right-ish of your screens. You can find people who are at the event. Send them a message and get a direct conversation going. You can do that in the networking room. You can do that throughout this space. And it's running for the rest of the afternoon as well. Yeah, really would encourage you and welcome you to take part. I'll put a signpost up for the next month's episode event as well, which will be running in October. So keep an eye on our social media information and the rest of our literature on the website as well. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all again next month. Thank you again so much for all of your time and effort, everyone. And yeah, can't wait to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye then.